Hey, what's up you guys? So I actually filmed this footage probably around 2 months ago, and somehow I ended up deleting the footage, so here I am getting ready to re-talk about it. It's not as fresh in my memory as it was when I first filmed it. I'm very sorry about that. I'm gonna try and recount as many details as possible. But in my last video, we left off with my mom and I deciding palliative care together. It was a mutual decision. We wanted her quality of life versus her quantity of life. I did not personally want her to be in any pain or suffering or just in a state where she felt helpless. So that was something that her and I had discussed together and how we came upon that decision. It was a Friday when we decided palliative care. They transferred us to a room on the 8th floor. We were previously on the 6th floor with it, which is the ICU unit. We were moved to the 8th floor, which is the surgical care unit. They took her off of BiPAP, switched her to just some little oxygen tubes, you know, your standard oxygen tubes, and we were put back in a room. A normal room with not as many monitors. Her screen this time was, I believe, orange. As you can see in like previous videos, the color of her screen, like her monitor, where her heart rate and oxygen saturation and all that fun stuff was colored like different colors and blue and stuff like that. When they switched to palliative care, they actually switch colors, which changes the mode so it doesn't beep the entire time, so you're not like panicking so much and it's not disruptive to you or the patient. On the first night being on palliative care, we had a really good friend of ours who is a chaplain. She came, you know, did a prayer for my mom and sang with my mom, played her guitar for my mom. We all just kind of gathered in a peaceful moment. The chaplain, her name's Sharon, she actually came and spoke with me and you know, just gave me some uplifting advice. I won't go too much into detail, but because it was a long conversation, but she commended me for how strong I was being for my mom, but to let me know that it was okay to cry. I sang to my mom. I asked to be alone in the room with my mom, and I sang to her. And my mom always said, "My dear, you have a voice. Use it." And I never really knew what she meant, but I think it kind of had many meanings. And I'm sorry, I'm gonna start crying a lot. It's happening a lot lately. I just have certain things in my mind that seem to trigger, and they trigger the tears, so I'm very sorry. I don't always mean to do it, it just seems to happen. In the middle of the nights, they would like roll my mom and reposition her, and you know, we switched her finally from chair to bed for one final time, and I was always so terrified when they were switching her from chair to bed or repositioning her, because I was scared if they laid her too flat or if they positioned her too vertical, her lungs would not be able to properly inflate, because when I looked at the scans in the ICU, 1.5 lung was consumed with tumor. So I was very scared that that would you know, speed up her process of passing if they repositioned her the wrong way. So I was so terrified of that. I did not sleep a whole lot in the nights. Nights were really hard for me, because I was so scared that she would pass and take her final breath, and I wasn't there to comfort, like I wouldn't be there to comfort her during that moment. And in the middle of the night, she would like toss her arm up and down. I don't know why. I don't know if it was anger, if it was pain, but I remember it was always like she was searching for my hand, because when I would just hold her hand like this or like this, she would stop throwing her arms everywhere. She just seemed to be comforted by that. When I felt my mom needed like pain medication, I was the one that pressed the button. the faces that she made that signaled to me that she was in pain are forever ingrained in my brain. I can never ever get those images out of my head. It's as clear as day. Just like communication with her at the very end was so hard for everyone, and it was so hard on me to not have her be able to communicate. It was hard to see her in that state. I remember one time she wanted something that we could not figure out, and we tried nurses to see if they could figure out. My godmother was there. We tried to see if she could. My best friend was there, and my aunt was there, and none of us could figure it out. And then finally I was just like looking at her, and I like, do you want ice chips? And the facial expressions on her face just changed and lit up. And I went to go get ice chips and put some in her mouth. Her mouth was god-awful dry and raw, and it was crazy. And towards the end I actually would have to take Tooth-It sponges. It's like a sponge on a stick, soak it in water, kind of rub it on the inside of her mouth and around her gums and everything to try and get it as moist as you possibly could. There was one point where she bit down on it, and I was so scared that she was gonna swallow the sponge. So I was like, Ma, you cannot do that. I was like, you gotta give me that sponge back. There was one time I was rubbing lip balm on her lips, and she bit down on my finger, not like hard, but like kind of just like nommed on it. And I was like, I need that back. I was like, you cannot have that, Mom. And she let go. I just don't think she realized, you know, what she was actually doing. It was almost like instinctual to bite down, but she could understand enough to know that it was me, and I said let go, and she let go. But nights were hard. Friday, first night in palliative care, so scary. Obviously it was her first time off of a big supportive oxygen and on just like a weaker setting of oxygen. My friends came Saturday. They drove all the way from New Mexico to Nebraska to be with me, and they were trying to keep me out of the room as much as possible to keep my mind occupied. We played a lot of video games, ate a lot of food and a lot of snacks. Probably the happiest and saddest I've ever been in my life. This is so random, I know, but I remember an exchange of glances that was given between my mom and the nurse, or not my mom and the nurse, my aunt and the nurse, when I finally figured out that my mom wanted ice chips. It was almost like, oh my gosh, like this little girl, so caring, talented, patient, like it was like an affirmation that I was doing good and taking care of my mom, which is all I wanted to do. I wanted to do everything that was the best for her. Her room in palliative care had a no cell phone policy. Unless it was on silent, you were not allowed to have your phone in the room because you shouldn't be making phone calls in the room. My mom was a very quiet and private person. I did not want any loud and obnoxious noises in that room. There was a person limit on how many people could be in the room. Again, I didn't want it to be overwhelming. I wanted it to be very peaceful, very zen for my mom. So I had a lot of, you know, stipulations and guidelines that, you know, I wanted the best for her. Every day it was like I was holding my breath. I was so scared. The entire time I was so scared. Monday morning, my aunt had talked to one of my cousins and asked how my mom was doing that day. And she had told her that my mom wasn't moving like she was the days prior. My mom was just kind of laying there and breathing. And my cousin had told her that that was normally a sign that somebody is getting ready to pass. And I remember, like, she told me that the oxygen might be the only thing keeping her alive at this point, and to think about my decisions and where I want to go with this, because I don't want her to suffer, you know? So with that information in mind, I called a nurse over, and I asked her if she could page Dr. Syed or one of the residents that was on my mom's case, but I told her I really wanted to talk to Dr. Syed. I wanted to get his opinions on if the oxygen was the only thing keeping her alive, because to be honest, I wasn't in the right mental state to make that last decision, and I just needed someone to reiterate in my brain something that I already knew, but someone who is in the right mental state to tell me the facts, if that makes sense. But I also really just wanted to thank him for everything that he did for us. I remember just going throughout that day, I was really, really happy with my friends. We were really quiet. We went to Target like on that Sunday, I think, and we got like gel pens and a fidget cube and silly putty and stuff like that for me to just mess around with in the room, so I wasn't going like stir crazy or anything. And I was just playing with all of that. Like midway through the day, I got up and I went to go charge my phone on the wall. I was sitting there next to my best friend's boyfriend. I was playing video games on my phone. My best friend was sitting next to my mom. There was a chair that I was sleeping in like a bed that were right next to each other, like that my mom was in. But I was on the couch opposite across from them. And there was a moment where I just looked at her and I was like, hey, can we switch spots? You know, I'd been kind of like eyeing the monitor and I saw the stats just didn't seem quite right. You know, 3.5 weeks is a long time to sit there and analyze stats, and having at least a decent amount of common sense, I am able to put 2 and 2 together. So I went zap by her. I left my phone charging over on the wall. I asked my friend to please text my aunt, who is down the hallway, and have her come back in the room. I just had this weird feeling. So she did, and my aunt came back in the room, and I was kind of just laying there on my mom, and I held her arm, and I asked my aunt to tilt the monitor down towards me so I could watch the vitals. And my aunt just kind of sat there, and it was probably all in all about 10 minutes where I kept glancing at the monitors and holding my mom. And I looked at the monitor for the last time and noticed that the vitals were hitting its lowest point. And it was almost like a movie. I looked at the monitor, I looked at my mom, saw her take her last breath of air and heard it, and she was gone. And I looked at my aunt and I just laid there holding her arm, and tears were just slowly just rolling out of my eyes, like just silently. I laid there. She was like, do you want me to go get a nurse? And I said, yeah. Well, my godmother got up and was like tapping the monitor. She was like, why isn't this thing working? Like, Angela, get off the cord. It's disconnected. Like, she was panicking. And my aunt came back, except she didn't come back with a nurse. Ironically, Dr. Syed was actually coming down the hallway to come see me. Weird timing on everything that day. It was so crazy. Can't even explain to you. The timing of everything was just weird. Anyways, he came into the room. My aunt had informed him outside the hallway that my mom had just passed, and that I needed help, I needed comfort. So he came in and he was like, hi Angela, and I got up and I greeted him, and he told me that he was sorry about my mom. And my godmother was panicking, really panicking. And we had said, I don't remember what point we did this, but we said he began a prayer with my mom and I, or not my mom and I, but around my mom and I. So it was like me and the family and friends that were there gathered around my mom with Dr. Syed and one of his surgical residents, and just gathering around my mom and saying a prayer, which I appreciated more than ever. That moment of peace and the practicality of it was just so special. And my godmother was like full blown out panicking, and you know, he went over there to calm her down along with my aunt. They were both trying to calm my godmother down, and the surgical resident just gives me a little side hug and tells me sorry for my loss, to praise me on how I've handled everything. Finally, my godmother calmed down. Dr. Syed walked over to me and asked me if I would like to go talk, and I said yes. So we walked into a little private room and asked me how I was doing, and I was honest with him. I told him that I was relieved, because I was. I was kind of like smiling, just like, I'm having like a great time. Like, I cannot tell you how relieving it was that I wasn't gonna have to be in the hospital anymore, and that my mom was no longer in pain and suffering and wasting away. Like, that was just a big breath of relief, or a big sigh of relief. But we went and talked, and I remember asking him if he had learned anything from my mom's case, and he kind of told me, and you know, I told him that he's allowed to take any samples or anything that he wants from my mom when they do the autopsy, to learn from her, because out of this bad experience, I want them to be able to learn something, at least just the slightest bit useful to help the next person. And I wanted to thank Dr. Syed for everything that he had done, because, you know, losing my mom was unimaginably painful. But I can also imagine that being the doctor, watching all this unfold, and with a cancer like my mom had that was not curable, to be on the sidelines and know that you can't do anything but feel like you can do something has to really just suck. You know, we're all human beings and we all feel these emotions, whether you're a professional doctor or not. You do feel these things, and so I wanted him to know how thankful I was that he did try his best, and I knew that, and that's okay. It wasn't the outcome that anyone wanted, but I wanted him to know that it was okay. He actually talked to me about some doctors and nurses and surgical residents that had come up to him and actually praised me to him about how well I took care of my mother, how responsible I was. There were specific words that he used. I really can't remember them because out of my dialect, and it's also like 1 in the morning right now. And, you know, we just had a good conversation. We left the room. We actually started walking down the hallway, and Dr. Syed turns to me and asked me if I was in college, and I said yes. And he asked me where I went to college, and I told him where I went, and he asked me what my major was, and I told him advertising and public relations. But I was like, I'm thinking of switching to pre-medicine. I was very adamant that I should switch. You know, it seemed to be throughout this journey something that I was just naturally good at, being a caretaker for people. So he kind of like was just really happy that I had mentioned that to him about going into pre-med. But yeah, we continued walking down the hallway, and I saw friends of my mom's walking down the hallway, and her sister. And I looked at Dr. Syed and I said, that is family coming down the hallway right now, and they do not know that she has passed. I said, would you be able to go tell them? And he said yes. So I went and departed back into my mom's room. He went down the hallway. I'm pretty sure they all like hysterically cried, because they all came into the room like hysterically crying. And yeah, and then they all came in. Dr. Syed came to me and actually gave me his personal email. He wanted me to do some job shadowing out at the hospital that he's at, and if he is working on any clinical trials with the type of cancer that my mom has, or anything that I might be interested in, he wanted me to contact him, or he'd reach out to me. And so that was like amazing, first of all, and I told him thank you, and I hugged him, And then we parted ways. And then I just kind of stood there and watched everyone get their last moment with my mom. You know, I was in absolute shock. I didn't cry. I just like was in awe and disbelief that this is what my life had come to. I was the one to remove my mom's oxygen monitor and her oxygen tubes. I attached a yellow rose to my mom's door, which I have in my bedroom, which is just a signal to other nurses and anyone who might know that a loved one has passed. My godmother helped with cleaning up my mom before they brought her down to the morgue. We're just kind of walking around, and I used my last meal voucher and I went back to my mom's room, and everyone had left and they were just waiting for people to come pick her up, and I asked to be alone with my mom. And I sat there and I talked to my mom and told her we're going home. I'm sorry, I wasn't expecting that one to hurt as much as it did. Just sat there talking to her, sang to her one last time, and watched them zip up the body bag and roll her away and roll her down the hallway with this casing over her. Such a surreal moment. It's kind of crazy. Pretty much I was just making funeral arrangements from that point. I drove home. My best friend stayed with me that night to make sure that I was okay. A few days later, you know, we had my mom's funeral. We had a fundraiser the day after 2 days after the funeral, to help pay for costs and stuff like that. We were selling Filipino food. I watched them seal the casket. I was there to watch her be lowered all the way into the ground and then cover her with dirt. At the viewing, I fixed up her hair and makeup. I just needed all of those final steps, from watching them wheel her away down to the morgue, you know, from the viewing to the sealing of the casket. I needed to watch all those steps to close each chapter, and just kind of get some closure and realization that this was actually happening in my life. What does that mean for me now? I'm going to tell you right now. You're going to see at the end of this video, I'm a mess. I'm going to be upfront about it. During the daytime, it doesn't affect me as much, but during the night, I get really, really sad. And it does affect me a lot. And it's very hard. And I try not to talk about it because I don't want to be annoying about it to people. So I just keep it to myself. Which is why I want to post this video, so I can at least feel like I'm talking to someone. And next steps for me, I was gonna get my CNA, but I'm actually filming this when this whole coronavirus thing is happening, this pandemic. So classes got canceled. I was actually like 3 days into my class and they canceled it. I had learned like 12 skills already, but they canceled it, so did not get to do the class. But this fall, I will be starting at a private health sciences college with a bachelor, or going to get a bachelor in biomedical sciences, hoping in the future to become a head and neck surgical oncologist, just focusing on the tumors of the head and the neck, which my mom had. Anaplastic Thyroid Cancer, that would be right here in this region. And yeah, that is what I see for me long term. In the moment though, not really doing great. I feel like I can speak a certain way and feel fine, but on the inside at the same time, I really don't feel alright. my uncontrollable crying that I seem to be having a problem with recently that makes me very mad. If a certain trigger is brought up, it triggers the tears in my eyes. I don't know why. I can't stop it, and I wish I could. And I don't know what to do anymore. I don't want to be annoying talking about this. I also can't stop talking about this because I am living it every second of my life. I'm reliving every memory over and over and over again. It's like it's just like a movie in my head that is on repeat, and it won't go away. And I hope that the people that I'm talking to, and if I get annoying, I hope they can realize that and feel that I'm trying not to talk about it a lot, but it is my everyday reality that I don't have my mom next to me. The one person that I could go to for everything, and that I wasted so many years with, being an absolute butthead. My mom was the center of my world, and I don't have her anymore. And I don't have anyone, because I don't have a dad either. This is my new sweater, and I'm dripping tears all over it. That's how I'm feeling. I'm so sorry this was long. I just need someone to talk to. I guess, as always, please don't forget to hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, and turn on that notification bell if you want to be notified of the next time that I upload a video. I do plan on filming my medical school journey, pre-med journey, all that fun stuff. Please share this video with family and friends. It would mean a lot to me. Yeah. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you soon. It's been 3 months since my mom's passed away. And normally, the days are fine. nights don't go so well. And I'm still just wondering when I'm gonna wake up from this nightmare. Because I really miss my mom. And I remember telling her that I